But I'd say that the main reason I wanted to inaugurate the audio presentation of this article was the fact that this supermoon sitting on the new year is forming a kite. And one of my passions in astrology is sacred geometry. As you can see in the image, for those who are just discovering astrology, you may notice that the great triangle in the middle forming a kite image with a minor triangle pointing to the sun in Capricorn and the planetary configuration around it. And we have one of the most, how to call it, exhilarating and uplifting geometrical figures in astrology. A kite formed by water grand trine. You can notice that the grand trine in the middle is a water trine, connecting together all the three water signs. So we have a grand water trine pointing towards an earth apex. We call the tip of the structure the apex. It is going to be the point where a astrological geometric structure releases its energy. When it comes to the Earth water axis, we have two possible kites. We have a kite where the grand trine happens in Earth, and the apex of the kite will be in water, always, all right? And we have a kite just like the one we have in 2018, made of the grand water trine pointing towards the earth sign of Capricorn in this case. When we have an earth grand trine pointing towards water, we can say that the energy of the earth trine is going to find an outlet and a release in water. And here we have a grand water trine manifesting itself in the element of earth. What does it mean? The grand trine itself, we have four main elements, four main energies. It's all energy, right? In a horoscope, we have the four elements. We have earth, we have air, fire, and water. The realm of water, when all three signs are connecting in this trine, the realm of water will, connecting us like this, will represent a comprehensive, essential water energy. The triangle itself, and number 3, if we are to discuss just a sequence of numbers numerologically, we might say that the number 3 connects culturally and as archetype with our idea of the fates. We have the 3 fates. We can find the 3 fates, the Moire, the Greek 3 fates, or we can find the Norns, the Viking 3 fates as an example. So oftentimes the trine itself, number 3, and the triangle is seen as a sign from above, purely as fate, a fated messenger or sign. In Christianity, the triangle, if we are to connect it with Trinity and the Holy Spirit, would represent that a sign and manifestation of the divine. that comes from above and has an ethereal, symbolic, spiritual form. So we do see the triangle as the manifestation of spirit through visions, talent, or through signs. And we can also think about the pyramid here and to see how it brings the energy from above, from the sky, right, into the earth. So this is how we see number 3 as in astrology. We would see it as the idea, the ineffable at first. And then when we are going towards number 4, and at the beginning I discussed the Grand Cross, the Grand Cardinal Cross, another way to categorize the astrological signs. We have number 4, which represents the foundation and the doing and the earth, and building the block of building a house, for example. It would represent creating the tangible, practical conditions for manifesting that idea. And then we are going to number 5, which is the magical element. We can find it in astrology. We will find the energy of the 4th, this energy of action and manifestation, and changing matter, working with matter, confronting ourselves with matter. We will find it in the square, in the Grand Cross, and the aspect of the square and of the T-square as its are the combination towards the Grand Cross, that T-square triangle. And so this is the energy that we find as analogy in astrology. And then moving towards number 5, we will find it in quintals. And the number 5 represents that magical, extraordinary thing that comes from creating a tangible object. The artistic value of it, for example. So this would be the movement from 3, 4, 5. And if we're looking at the triangle and we see the vibration of number 3 as the idea presented to us, waiting for manifestation, the inspiration, the skill, we now can understand that a water grand trine will bring an extreme importance this year for everything that means water, which would be emotions, intuition, feelings, a fluidity of desires that come from the heart, for something that really touches us. Creativity, cooperation, and let's say on the downside, it would be an emphasis on moodiness, fluidity, the desire to find a structure, a basin, a lake to put all our water in. We already in number 3, there is when number 3 manifests, there's going to be a desire for number 4. So we're going to have to look for a structure. Otherwise, the energy of the Grand Trine, which represents actually in astrology the perfect conditions when it comes to talent and potential. The perfect, not the perfect conditions, sorry, the perfect energy and skill to become, to manifest that energy of that trine. And when it comes to a water trine, in a natal chart, for example, if we have a water trine, we would say that the person is a natural when it comes to intuition, certain talents that require fluidity, which can be, for example, music, all right, and emotional intelligence and communication, support coming from the entourage in whatever they are doing. So it's going to be like a perfect talent for that in a grand trine, in a natal chart. But it's still a floating structure, and it can not guarantee that the person is going to use all that talent for good or bad. When we have something that we are natural at, and it comes with such ease, for the trine is the easiest structure, geometric structure we can find in astrology, we also run the danger of either become too complacent and use it for power and ego purposes, so for its negative counterpart, because it will give us such easiness in acquiring certain just like, the difference between Mozart and Salieri. The easiness in acquiring glory in those areas that we almost always run the danger of taking them for granted. So we also need some kind of challenge or outlet so that we use that perfect talent, combination of talents actually, to manifest the grand trine. In this case, with the kite, what we will have an outlet of manifestation, while the grand trine was just floating a little bit above the earth, like a flash or a vision. The kite is going to soar and to fly. And just like we have to guide, and from the ground we are guiding and handling the kite. We can see this here in astrology, in the structure, as the apex. The entire energy of the water grand trine is going to be released into the earth apex that we have in the sun in Capricorn, which it translates in terms of our discussion here as 2018 being a year for us to be successful in manifesting intangible forms, just like very similar to the energy described around the moon and the sun on this axis. Our heart's desire, our talents for emotional communication and relationships and partnerships, our talent in negotiating and finding the most loving and lovable manner of interacting and expressing. And we are going to now look at the planets themselves to actually understand more about the whole water structure that is meant to be released in the Capricorn sun. A Capricorn sun is the apex of a kite, representing the energy of the rules, the structure, the authority, which usually is implementing for a long time, for many generations, especially in the context of having Pluto nearby. Pluto in Capricorn already introduced this revolution when it comes to destroying the old, replacing the old structures in a way that is very political. For Pluto in Capricorn is very political, yes. But being a slow-moving energy in the sign, this might not be as apparent. It feels as if it's taking a long time, and the consequences come long from the past, and they are projected long into the future. That's why we see 2018 is going to be a huge step on the ladder towards this Aquarian future we are moving into. And the energy of water manifesting into earth is like rain falling on the ground. It can be very soothing and nourishing, especially coming from the other apex, the source, which is the moon in Cancer, a major symbol of nourishment. Moon is in domicile in Cancer here. It feels it's a home in the zodiac for the moon to be in Cancer. It's the origin itself, the perfect image of the moon resting at home in her own sign. And she is the mother and nourisher. So there's and falling this rain onto the arid, cold ground, earth in Capricorn. We do see that the water here is bound to manifest in a very positive way when it comes to food, to crops this year. But there's also a bit of a danger of too much water when we have a grand trine of water, of targeting with a kite a point on the earth. So if this is going to be, if there is more negative manifestation of this energy. Now we are going to look at the planets themselves to understand a little bit. Not all grand water trines are going to be the same. So we notice something extraordinary about this particular water trine. We do see that all planets are here in their rulership, in their domicile. We see the grand water trine is formed by Neptune in Pisces, also in his own home. Neptune in Pisces does bring a lot of water itself, but in terms of positive manifestation, it would be intuition at its highest vibration and manifestation. It heralds compassion, forgiveness, healing and cleansing, incredible imagination and creativity. So we might tell that we will see the possibility to experience incredible discoveries and artistic creations. And then we have the moon in Cancer, as I said, also in her own domicile, the mother, the nourishing mother, in trine with Neptune. It actually means music. So literally, we should experience some important events when it comes to this. And then more figuratively, we have here a type of a connection with the universe in regards to sounds and to water at the same time, that points to specific discoveries and advancement both in space when it comes to communicating with the space, as in hearing and listening to important sounds and the music of the spheres in connection to finding out important things about other galaxies and planets, to this way of discovery and communication. And also it's possible that we will have underwater discoveries that will be exceptional, extraordinary compared to other years. And then we have them both connected, this incredible trine, Moon trine Neptune, trine for psychics, empaths, bringing so much the possibility to understand people just by being in their presence, to absorb their energies, both positively and negatively. However, the trine usually points to the easiest, more natural, as I said, positive manifestation of something. The possibility to imagine incredible things and to have a power of creativity that is very fluid and spectacular when it comes to let other people dream, encourage other people to dream. And this is going to be another specific domain of this trine, dreams and fantasy, in connection with another rulership here, Mars and Scorpio conjunct Jupiter. We will have an important... It has already started this trend, but I think this year it will probably reach heights even more spectacular. This hunger and need for the superhero as archetype inside us and in others as well. And it seems that there's going to be a lot of fantasy, and some of the fantasies that appeared in books and in movies, they are already taking shape. Just think of Sophia, the robot, for example. And we are going to continue and to see like a very special year for this. Many sci-fi futuristic dreams, books, imagination that were things that were imagined by Wells or other authors like Jules Verne in the past, and that we have started to see a trend for in movies, for example, the Marvel cinema and all. We are going to see a more tangible realization of them when it comes to artificial intelligence, when it comes to robotics, when it comes to spatial travel, when it comes to all kinds of transportation means, engines and other devices that simply will amaze us and will already form a rather clear image of how our daily life in the future looks like. And this is this archetype of the superhero is seen here in this Mars-Jupiter conjunction in Scorpio. Mars rules both Aries and Scorpio, and while in Aries it might tend to manifest its energy in a fiery way by being an arrow that more like the ram, the horn of the ram pointing towards the sun, the sky, the light. Here Mars is the sting of the Scorpio, which actually sends you towards a journey into darkness. So it's that proactive energy going deeper and further into darkness. And therefore we can see how this trine, and together with Jupiter, they form, Mars and Jupiter together, they form the archetype of the grand explorer, traveler, the great man facing the unknown in Scorpio. This is why we are going to see, in combination with the Moon and Neptune, interesting discoveries. I would say they should be sensational. discoveries and creations, also scientific, technological, that somehow are connected to exploring darkness. We have to remember that Scorpio is the realm of the underworld, and it is ruled not only by Mars, but also Hades, Pluto, the lord of the underworld, the lord of darkness and of death. But here I see this exploration with Jupiter, the great traveler and adventurer and explorer, by its side in conjunction. I see how we are going to pierce darkness with the light of the moon as well, and through the waters of Neptune, in order to discover something important. This could mean that we will probably have access to discovery in regards to exploring the deep space, the black holes, what happens beyond them, but also at level of the deep oceans, where again there's in connection with Neptune and the volcano of Pluto. Something important should be discovered and used from there. And at the same time, if we are going to talk, to consider the moon and its tides and the waves of Neptune and this whole movement with Mars and Jupiter, there's probably going to be a part of this incredible discoveries and technologies will be connected to waves, the tides and the waves. So we are talking about the waves in physical sense. And of course, another source of darkness for us is the microverse, not just the universe. So we're talking quantics and taking further with very important discoveries in that area also. So basically, what I'm saying is this whole trine comes into manifestation in the earthy sun in Capricorn through actual scientific discoveries and technologies that will most likely be really exceptional this year. There are just many ways to discuss and interpret this kite, only if you just only to look at the kite in our chart, and we can see how it affects us politically when it comes to the change of authorities. We can see how it affects us on an individual level, looking for the proper authority in us. We are going to find on both levels, we will need to find a real kind of authority that is based on a serious set of values when it comes to integrity and mutual nourishment. We will not be allowed to be selfish and alone. You can see that during the supermoon, Uranus in Aries turned direct after its retrograde movement. It's happening today on the 2nd, and this is also an important moment for our chart here for 2018. It shows that some dramatic, sudden, explosive events are also likely to happen. However, what is interesting is that this Uranus is disconnected from the kite. So no matter what happens, it seems that we will be able to face it with a structure that comes from quite genuine needs of the whole family. The mother and the father together, they are cooperating to create new political, social rules that are based on mutual respect. And I'm saying this because we have Sun in conjunction with Venus in Capricorn here. Perhaps it may sound a bit like I don't know, a bit cheesy, but it does a grand water trine pointing towards Venus. We'll speak of the power of love, but with Venus in Capricorn, it's going to be very serious. The real thing, the serious kind of love. Venus in Capricorn is a lover that only believes in marriage, or let's say, if not marriage as it used to be on paper, but a relationship that is for life. So if you ask any Venus in Capricorn what their ideal in love is, you will find that it's going to be about some form of timeless love. Therefore, the relationship between men and women will continue to force them to face the most serious part of themselves. They will show to each other they do not tolerate to be taken for granted or to be used. They will each part will want to have the proper authority in a good sense, to be considered a whole, to be treated with respect. Yeah, that's the way to talk about it here. This is what this Venus in Capricorn says, and Saturn is also in its own sign, not far away. So this trend, or this moment, this very important moment in a relationship between genders, and the relationship that we are supposed to have with the people that we desire, we find sexually attractive, we find attractive when it comes to forming a relationship with them, or a couple, that we can find this attraction and desire in the grand water trine. We will continue to revolutionize the way we want to be treated, the way we want to interact with each other, including a professional setting. The important stage of gender relations that met a turning point, quite a revolutionary one, last year. And I am unfortunately talking about the sexual harassment and sexual assault exposures that happen, will continue to get to a stage of actual reglementation of these issues in when it comes to various gender rights, to regulations pertaining to the professional environment, to gender relations at work. And this whole revolution, because it is a revolution, it may not be very visible, or let's say it's a bit of a shock that we need to, as a society, we need to acquire and understand in time the consequences of these events and the chain of events that it triggers. But we will notice, especially by the end of this year, how what appeared to start as a shock, it actually becomes a set of laws and rules. And this is because the energy of this kind of exposure also started with Jupiter in Scorpio, in combination in its dance with Mars, through disposition with Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, which also represent a more undesirable side of patriarchal male energy when it comes to this kind of energy, facing certain extremes that are toxic or negative. And there is going to be a very emotional impact on both men and women, and a desire to cooperate to find a lasting solution, both at the level, individual simple level of normal simple couples, both at this level and at political, legislative level as well, and corporations and organizations. So we will continue, this movement will continue, and it will take a legal formal form structure. And going back to Venus here, Venus in Capricorn is posited by Saturn in its own domicile again. Whenever we have this domicile thing in astrology, we might say that the planets have an energy that wants to settle down. It's like coming home and putting on your slippers and your pajamas and feeling comfortable in front of a cup of tea or your TV or whatever you like to do. So this is the energy of planets in their domicile. They will want to be traditional there, to do the right thing. But interestingly, in our case, it is not about a formal tradition. It is a desire to formalize a new type of relationships between not necessarily men and women, but between parties that are want to connect with each other on personal, intimate, romantic level. So this Venus here will continue to request and actually implement with its power of negotiation and beautification of even of the ugliest situations. She will continue to find and to implement a viable solution for making the way we live with each other at work, at home, in the context of the strong desires and impulses of men and women, and this continuous power play that we actually can continue to have with each other. It will try and manage in the end to give it a civilized, regulated, serious, stable, long-lasting form. And finally, there's just so much to be said, of course. Finally, I would like to get back to our sun and moon facing each other, dancing with each other, in this magnificent, incredible moment of the beginning of the year, so close to Earth. This is the supermoon, very close to us. And I will tell you the Sabian symbols for each one of them. They point to two other main predictions. Well, they're not necessarily other because they are to be seen, as we discussed before, for example, the superhero archetype. We're going to experience much closer this year. The Sabian for the moon, the Sabian degree of this supermoon is going to be in 11 to 12 Cancer, and it actually foretells this: a Chinese woman nursing a baby whose aura reveals him to be the reincarnation of a great teacher. That is a very straightforward prediction. The degree of this moon in the full moon, telling us that it is very likely this year new, very important political figure will emerge. There are two possibilities here, other than this important man or woman is going to be born this year, or that they will rise and be seen. In the prediction itself, we see a connection with China, so we have a clue here about the origins, or let's say, if not the person arises in China, that they will have a connection, or they will become important in regards to the relationships between United States and China, and perhaps connected to the political and military conflicts or negotiations between China and other countries of the world. Or let's say if the person does not have a direct Chinese connection, they would just be have an important word in regards to general international policy, in which now China obviously plays a major role and will continue to do so for the next year. This reminds us of that superhero clue that we found, theme that we found in the Mars-Jupiter conjunct in Scorpio. And then if we are looking at on the other side in Capricorn, to have another clue about this, what this full moon and this year is going to bring to us. We have there on the 11-12th degree Capricorn, an illustrated lecture on natural science reveals little known aspects of life. And so we do have another pointer here connecting to the idea I described to you, that this year is going to be a very important year with major significant discoveries, scientific discoveries, and technological accomplishments that are of the future for a very long time, since we are dealing with Capricorn here. And finally, I'm going to get back to the idea I started with. The one that this chart, the chart of the supermoon coinciding with the beginning of 2018, is actually like a map, a time map, like a clock, if you want. And I believe that the most important events this year should happen when there are important transits over the 4 points of the kite. Okay, so we should have a major event when, and I not only that we will have transits on this point, on these points of the kite, but I believe the sun will play an important role. So it's very possible that the sun transiting the other 3 points of the kite will coincide with the most important events this year globally. Why is that? Because this kite is is what we would call a sun kite, in the sense that we often name, or at least I do so, a geometric structure that has an apex after the planet of the apex, because the planet represents the release of that geometric structure. So the final energy of the final combined energy of that geometric structure will manifest through the power of this apex planet. In this case, having the sun, we can look at the course of the sun over the zodiac, and we perhaps, most likely, we have the sun here as trigger, or let's say not necessarily as trigger, because there's always a combination of events and of planets and of energies that trigger such an event. But the sun will become like a clock, like a timer for this event. And in terms of transits, it will most likely point to at least 3 major events when the sun reaches Neptune in the original position of Neptune here. Neptune is a slow planet, so it's going to be around it anyway the whole year. When it reaches Pisces around the 11th degree, and then when the sun arrives in Cancer around the 11th degree, 12th degree as the moon is now. This is going to be another timer for a very important event. And then, of course, when the sun reaches between 14th and 17th Scorpio, we're going to have another third turning point of the year in terms of events. So just pay attention to, here we have February, July and November as the moments when these important events are most likely to occur. And another important event we should expect when Sun transits Chiron and Uranus. So either it is more likely to happen as a chain of events. It's possible that this to not be a very positive event. We have here a semi-sextile between Chiron and Uranus. A semi-sextile is very interesting configuration, uniting two signs that are antagonistic usually. One of them, they're also male and female, yin and yang energies. They are quite different. The adjacent signs are usually quite different. However, the movement from one to another represents going through another stage, acquiring something really different. And when they are connected through the aspect which is part of the 12th harmonic, the semi-sextile, when they are connected like this to an actual aspect, they are in orb here, quite exact, since we have both of them at 24th. We will have most likely an event that takes a bit longer and consists of a chain of events. It should trigger by the end of around the degree of 24th, where Chiron is now. The third trimester of Pisces, and probably will reach its peak when Sun is by the end of Aries, around the 24th. This particular event seems to be of a rather brusque, sudden, explosive, rather violent nature. However, as I said, we need to focus on this magnificent structure that we have here, the kite. It shows us that we are going to be very grounded no matter what we are faced with. And through the power of Sun conjunct Venus and Pluto nearby, we'll be very powerful in cooperating and finding solution quite fast, quite immediately. The entire mechanism of support and reaction of groups and the society will be in moments of difficulty will work very well, and there will be a sense of a compassion, empathy, and cooperation that will even surprise us with its magnitude.